The 2024 season has long been over, and the 2025 season gets closer each and every day. But just because the Detroit Lions season didn't end where we all wish it did, doesn't mean that there weren't memorable moments. The Lions had a franchise record 15 wins last year, which is something we honestly may never see again. So even though the season ended leaving a sour taste in Lions fans' mouths, I still think it's important that we remember the 2024 season for being the best regular season in franchise history. And that's going to be what this series is all about. We're going to look back at the season that was to remember some of the best moments that the Lions had. Whether it was a jaw-dropping highlight, a crazy comeback, or a dominant drive, the moments that made up the 2024 season are worth revisiting. So join me as we count down the top 10 moments of the 2024 season for the Detroit Lions. So welcome back everyone to another installment of the top 10 moments of the 2024 season for the Detroit Lions. If you're new here, welcome in. My name is Zach Payton and I make Lions videos here on YouTube as I am a Detroit Lions fan. If you're returning, then welcome back. Regardless though, happy to have you here. Just before we get into this week's moment, if I could get you to hit that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on, as this is a very small channel. So if you could take 5 seconds to do those 3 things, it'd really help the channel grow. And also, if this is the first installment of this series that you're seeing, make sure you go check out the other 2 so far. This is moment number 8, so we have 10 and 9 for you to catch up on. Go check those videos out as well. Now this week, we are focusing on a much more isolated, contained play within the context of a game. You know, we've had a game-winning play or a play to set up a game-winning field goal. We've had an entire game. That's been where we're at so far. But this doesn't have the same significance. This moment doesn't necessarily carry the same weight that those 2 have so far, but it's just a fun moment. Now, if you are a Lions fan, you're going to already know this. If you're not a Lions fan, you may have only heard of this sort of the myth, the mystique of the Lions trick plays last season. And everyone knows that Ben Johnson was a very creative offensive coordinator. That is why he has been hired to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. But the trick plays that he and his offensive staff would scheme up routinely were very creative. In fact, there are multiple trick plays on this list because of how creative and fun they are. So even if you have only heard the tales of the Lions trick plays, let's just say the well was deep. Now, before we get to the actual play, a little bit of context before we do. So, it was week 4, and the Lions were hosting the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football, and this game carried a little bit more significance for the Lions specifically, and a little bit more weight than your typical early season matchup that isn't between rivals. And that is because the Seattle Seahawks, throughout the Dan Campbell era so far, and well before that, honestly, have owned the Lions up to that point. The Lions were on a 6-game losing streak against the Seattle Seahawks dating back to 2012. It had been 12 years since they've beaten Seattle. Now, in recent years, this is a lot more specific to Aaron Glenn because his defense had allowed over 35 points in 3 straight games, including a 50 bomb, including a 48-point affair, and then I think the other one was 37 in that overtime game a few years ago. So Seattle had been really taking it to the Lions over the past few years, and the Lions, it was time to just get this win, get them, not monkey off the back because it wasn't that significant, but you got to break the curse. You got to beat Seattle and ideally have a good defensive effort. Now, the defense was hit or miss in this game. For some reason, Geno Smith just really had their number. I actually don't know the explanation for that, but the defense was just okay in this game, but the offense was firing on all cylinders. Which brings us to the moment we're going to focus on today. So this takes place in the 3rd quarter. At this point in the game, the Lions, they had been up 21-7, and Seattle had just driven down the field to score a touchdown to make it 21-14. So it's now a 1-score game. Lions have the ball back, trying to restore a 2-possession lead. Now, there's a bit of a moment within the moment here, or moment leading up to the moment, as David Montgomery did his best Marshawn Lynch impression on this drive. He ran over a defender after catching a check down, broke another tackle, ran around a bunch of defenders, and picked up a huge gain. And it was an absolutely incredible run, and a few plays later, it would set up a touchdown that we are going to focus on today. So, as I said, Lions looking to restore a 2-touchdown lead. It's 2nd and goal from about the 8-yard line, and the Lions are poised to strike. So, Jared Goff in shotgun. He takes the snap, fakes the handoff, and does a little reverse flip to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And now the entire offensive line, David Montgomery's out there too, like everyone shifts to the right to block for St. Brown. And that fooled Seattle's defense. You see, Seattle's defense entirely shifted to that right side. And I mean, they were following all of the Lions players that were doing the same, except for one guy. And that guy was Jared Goff, who after flipping the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown, just leaked out in the flat, little sneaky little, I don't even know if you could fully call it a route. He just ran out into the flat. Amon-Ra St. Brown plants his feet, looks back, and lofts an absolute dime down to Jared Goff. And you know what? Credit the Seattle defender. There was one defender who recognized what was happening. He didn't make the play, and the shot of him flailing his arms in the air is kind of funny. But credit to him for at least giving effort and almost stopping the play. Like, A for effort on that one. But Jared Goff, quarterback of the Detroit Lions, catches a touchdown pass. And for a long time, it was really funny because throughout the season, we, in the Lions fan community, we were clowning on Deebo Samuel for only having one receiving touchdown. And Jared Goff had the same amount of touchdowns as him for shockingly long last season. And the rest of the game was an absolute shootout. I mentioned earlier, Geno Smith just had the Lions number. He was slicing and dicing all night. Kenneth Walker made the Lions what at the time we thought was a really good run defense. He exposed it. He had a very nice game. I think he had a hat trick of touchdowns as well. He was running crazy. He also had that like crazy flip over Alex Anzalone. Incredible performance by Walker as well. Jamison Williams caught a 70-yard touchdown. Like, it was just fireworks from beginning to end in this one. An absolutely wild game that wound up finishing 42-29. The Lions, they get that win over Seattle, a little notch in their belt. And going into the bye, the vibes were back as the Lions were now up to 3-1, which, I mean, considering the way they lost the Tampa game, people were still upset about, myself included. But 3-1 at the bye, can't really complain too much about that. And in a game that had it all, I think this was the most memorable moment. I mean, how often is Jared Goff going to catch a touchdown? I'm going to guess never again, or maybe one more time in his entire career. Very memorable play, and probably the most fun play of the night. So that's going to do it for this episode. Sorry, a little bit of a shorter one this week, as again, it's more of an isolated moment. And again, I'm also sorry that this is coming out a little bit later than I would have liked. I usually shoot for Thursdays on these, so I'll try to get back into that groove for next week's episode. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe if you loved it. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.